What is going on, everybody? And welcome to the Young Brother of Soul podcast show. And guess what? Well, y'all already know who it is. It's your guy, the Young Brother of Soul. First and foremost, I want to give a shout out to the Seattle Seahawks for winning Super Bowl 60. I had a funny feeling you guys were going to win the Super Bowl. I mean, your defense was way better. The Patriots offense wasn't there the whole time. And not only that, you already know I can't stand New England. Yeah, I said it. I can't stand New England. And not only that, you stopped them from winning their 7th Super Bowl. I mean, they don't have Tom Brady. Yeah, unfortunately, I said it. Yeah, Tom Brady. And not only that, like I said, the defense was phenomenal. To me, to be honest with you, that game was boring. I mean, it was a defensive game, but nobody scored a touchdown to the third quarter. And not only that, Seattle just kept kicking field goal after field goal after field goal. But, things started heating up a little bit, towards the second half. But I already knew Seattle was going to win. And not only that, shout out to quarterback Sam Darnold. He is the only quarterback out of the draft class of 2018 to make it to a Super Bowl. Yeah, I said it, but he is. It's the truth. He's the only quarterback out of the draft class of 2018 to make a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl. And not only that, I know poor Jets fans are like, oh, man, we should have gave him a chance. Yeah, you should have. Y'all was not patient with the man. And, for sure, I know Vikings fans are really devastated right now. I mean, you had him for 1 year. He went 14-3. Yeah, he didn't play that well towards the end of the season, but you should have gave him another chance, another shot. But he would go on and eventually sign with the Minnesota Vikings. Ooh, did I say Minnesota Vikings? Seattle Seahawks. And his first year with the Seahawks, he wins the Super Bowl. So, yeah, poor Vikings fans. Boy, you guys are, you guys are really going through it as a Vikings fan. Yeah, y'all are. Y'all definitely are. So, on today's episode on the Young Brother of Soul podcast show, I'm going to do a little more history of the Super Bowl. Now, yeah, football season is officially over with. Once the Super Bowl is done, football season is over. Yeah, it sucks. It's a shame that football season come by so quick. And not only that, if you think about it, football season for the players may be off from playing. But if you think about it, football season not really, it's like a off thing if you think about it. Because after the Super Bowl, what do you have? The Senior Bowls for players that are going to be getting drafted into the NFL. Then you have the draft combine. Oh, man. And not only that, you also have free agent frenzy of players that are being re-signed, or they're signing with another team, or they're being traded to another team. And then there's the NFL draft. Yeah, the NFL draft. And not only that, after the NFL draft, that's when players start training. You have the rookie training camp, and then you have mandatory training camp, and then we'd be back with preseason, and then we'd be back with the NFL season. So, yeah, basically the NFL season is, it's over with, but then it's not over with at the same time. Leave a comment, tell me what you think, if you agree with me or not. I mean, it don't matter. This is my opinion. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, we're doing another Super Bowl history on the Young Brother of Soul podcast show on this episode today. And what I'm going to be talking about is NFL players that never played in the Super Bowl. Now, there are quite a few great NFL players that played in the Super Bowl, but they didn't win it all. They didn't win it all. There are a lot of great NFL players, even to this day, that played in the Super Bowl, give it all they got, doing what they supposed to do, but they didn't win it all. Leave a comment, tell me what you think about that. Now, there are quite a few great players that never appeared in the Super Bowl. Quite a few of them made it to conference championships, but they didn't make it that far. And it's a couple of them that never made a conference championship appearance. Now, why is that? Maybe it's because of the team, the coaching. And if you think about it, like I said, there were a lot of great teams by season, teams that played so well, but didn't win a Super Bowl. Why? For some reason, some of them make it to the divisional rounds, the conference championships, AFC, NFC, NFC, AFC, and the Super Bowl, and do not win. Now, for these great players that never appeared in the Super Bowl, you would think that they would win one because of the great athletic skills of that player. And then it's also the team that they played for. Yeah. Starting off on this list, a great NFL player that never played in the Super Bowl is Sterling Sharpe. Now, Sterling Sharpe, well, he's the older brother of tight end Shannon Sharpe, who has 3 Super Bowls. But back to Sterling Sharpe. Sterling Sharpe was a phenomenal wide receiver of the Green Bay Packers. He actually debuted in the NFL in 1988. I mean, the man was phenomenal. He made some crazy catches. He was a great route runner. He played with Brett Favre. Well, before then, he had another quarterback, but he played with Brett Favre. And I never forget seeing the highlights that when they played the Detroit Lions in a playoff game, and he caught the game-winning touchdown, which was like over, I believe, maybe 60, 65, 70 yards. It was a deep pass. Sterling Sharpe was amazing. Well, unfortunately, in the 1994 season, Sterling Sharpe would suffer a career-ending injury to his neck. And if it would have got worse, he would have gotten paralyzed. So he had no choice but to retire. I mean, the man was phenomenal. He would eventually get inducted into the Hall of Fame of the NFL, but if it wasn't for this injury, he definitely would have been part of the 1996 Green Bay Packers that won Super Bowl 31. And he was just, like I said, he was on the field. He was amazing. And unfortunately, he suffered a career-ending neck injury, and he had no choice but to retire. So can you imagine if he would have never suffered that career-ending injury? Oh, Sterling Sharpe definitely would have been in the at least top 5 receivers list of all time. And not only that, he definitely would have won Super Bowl 31 with the Green Bay Packers. He retired 2 years before they won that Super Bowl because of his injury. So, like I said, can you imagine if he would have never gotten hurt? Oh, yeah, we definitely would have been talking about a different ball game in this situation. But he had that injury. But at the end, at least he made it to the NFL Hall of Fame. I give him that, though. Sterling Sharpe, you're amazing, man. Yeah, you are. Another great NFL player that never appeared in a Super Bowl is Randall Cunningham. Now, Randall Cunningham, he made quite a few lists. And not only that, Randall Cunningham was a phenomenal quarterback. He took the scrambling, mobile quarterback to another level than what it was, because then you had Fran Tarkenton, then you had Randall Cunningham. Randall was the man. Okay. He played 11 seasons in Philadelphia. The only thing is, he only won one playoff game. And it's like he couldn't get over the hump in Philadelphia. But he played on a team that had a tremendous defense with Reggie White, Jerome Brown, Clyde Simmons, Seth Joyner, Eric Allen. I mean, the teams that he played defense was phenomenal. But unfortunately, those teams that he played on did not win a Super Bowl. They were always early playoff exits. Yeah, early playoff exits. And, eventually in 1991, he would suffer a season-ending injury. And to be honest with you, I believe that he really hasn't been the same since, you torn your ACL. You're not the same player when you torn your ACL. Like I said before on another episode, you got to learn how to walk again. You got to do rehabilitation. You got to learn how to run again. Then sometimes you fear that you're going to tear it again, which can happen. Well, he actually came close to appearing in the Super Bowl. He was on that 1998 Minnesota Vikings. Well, he wasn't the same Randall Cunningham that played in Philadelphia. He was pocket Randall Cunningham, and he had a tremendous arm. Well, unfortunately, the Vikings would lose the 1998 NFC Championship to the Atlanta Falcons. Well, we already know what that situation was, and I still don't understand why I'm not going to go into greater detail about that anymore. We'll probably talk about that another time. But yeah, Randall Cunningham came close to playing in a Super Bowl, which was 1998, like I said, and with the Minnesota Vikings. And if the Vikings definitely would have won that game, that probably would have been a great Super Bowl with them and the Broncos, but they fell short. So, man, can you imagine if Randall would have played in the Super Bowl with either the Eagles or that Vikings team? We definitely would have had nothing to worry about with Randall Cunningham being on this list. But fortunately, he didn't play in the Super Bowl. So, yeah, excuse me. A wonderful quarterback. Yeah. Another great NFL player that did not play in the Super Bowl, John Randall. Now, John Randall was a defensive tackle for the Minnesota Vikings. And not only that, he was undersized. He was like at least 6 foot or 6'1" to play defensive tackle. Nobody didn't really give him a shot. Well, that is until in 1990 he would join the Minnesota Vikings, and he turned out to be one of the greatest defensive tackles in the NFL. I mean, he had over 100 sacks, and he was quick. He was fast. He had a big mouth, though. He talked a big game, but he could back it up, though. Well, unfortunately, I was about to say Randall Cunningham. John Randall was part of that 1998 Minnesota Vikings team that lost the NFC Championship to the Atlanta Falcons. He actually came close, too. Then again, he will also come close again when it was the 2000 Minnesota Vikings, which they lost that NFC Championship to the New York Giants when they got blown out 41-0. I mean, good Lord, where was the offense at? Where was the defense? What happened in that game? Well, his career ended with the Seattle Seahawks, and they would lose that playoff game to the Green Bay Packers because I never forget Matt Hasselbeck. Well, the game went into overtime, and Seattle won the game toss, and Matt Hasselbeck said, "We're going to receive and we're going to score." Well, he threw an interception to Al Harris, and Al Harris ran it back for a game-winning touchdown, and Seattle was eliminated. So, yeah. But, yeah, John Randall definitely was a great NFL player that never appeared in the Super Bowl. He made it to the Hall of Fame. He did. Yes, he did. But never appeared in the never appeared in the Super Bowl. Like I said, can you imagine if that Vikings team would have won? It would have been a different story, but it didn't happen. It did not happen. Another great NFL player that did not appear in a Super Bowl, LaDainian Tomlinson. Now, LaDainian Tomlinson will always and forever be a legendary running back for the San Diego Chargers. Now, he won MVP in 2006. And not only that, he had 30 rushing touchdowns in that season. 30. Well, that Chargers team went on to have a 14-2 record. But they were going to the divisional round and lose it to the New England Patriots. Yeah, LaDainian Tomlinson. But he did come close. He was part of that 2007 San Diego Chargers that made it to the AFC Championship. But he was injured, and not only that, they would lose that AFC Championship to the New England Patriots, and that was the Patriots' undefeated season. They went 18-0 to play in the Super Bowl. I mean, LaDainian Tomlinson was a phenomenal running back. I mean, he did moves that would make you miss, and he didn't appear in the Super Bowl. Never did. He's in the Hall of Fame, though. I give him that. But he never appeared in the Super Bowl. He would come close again in 2010 when he was part of the New York Jets team. But that team lost the AFC Championship to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who were going and playing Super Bowl 45. Oh, man. Can you imagine if Philip. Can you imagine? Well, then again, Philip Rivers, too, because that 2007 AFC Championship, if he would have never torn his ACL, it probably would have been a different story. But yeah, LaDainian Tomlinson was definitely a great running back, but he never appeared in the Super Bowl. Like I said, he came twice, but he didn't appear in it. But he is a Hall of Famer, so I give him that. Whew. LaDainian Tomlinson. The good old days. Especially with him and Antonio Gates, who definitely was a great tight end that didn't appear in the Super Bowl. But yeah, he's another one who didn't appear in the Super Bowl. Came close, 2007, but didn't appear. Yeah, Antonio Gates. That was my guy. And plus, he was undrafted. He was playing basketball in college and then went on to play in the NFL. That's why he was so good. There's a lot of NFL players that play basketball in college. That's why majority of them play tight end when they catch the ball so good, is because of the way how they play basketball. So, yeah, I give him that. Another great NFL player that did not appear in a Super Bowl is Chris Carter. Now, Chris Carter was a heck of a wide receiver in the NFL. And not only that he was a heck of a wide receiver, he would actually start off his career with the Philadelphia Eagles in the supplemental draft. He was there for 3 seasons. Well, unfortunately, he went through some, off-field issues, and then he would get cut. And then he would join the Minnesota Vikings, where he showed how good he is. The man had over 1,000 receptions and over 100 receiving touchdowns. He was also part of that 1998 Minnesota Vikings and 2000. And to be honest with you, I don't think Chris Carter hasn't even gotten over that 1998 season. I mean, they were 15-1. 15-1. He played with Randy Moss, who was a rookie. But they lost that NFC Championship to the Atlanta Falcons. And then in year 2000, they lost the NFC Championship to the New York Giants. So Chris Carter definitely is a great NFL player that did not appear in the Super Bowl. Like I said, if they would have won that NFC Championship, we definitely would have been talking about something a little different. Because Chris Carter was a heck of a receiver. And he played with Randy Moss. Yeah. But he's in the Hall of Fame. So I give him that. He definitely is in the Hall of Fame. Another great NFL player that did not play in the Super Bowl, running back Eric Dickerson. Now, Eric Dickerson definitely was a phenomenal running back for the LA Rams. And not only that he was phenomenal, his second season in the NFL is still a rushing record till this day. He ran for 2,105 rushing yards his second season. I mean, to this day, like I said, this record hasn't even been broken. And not only that, he is one of the receivers. He's one of the running backs to have a 2,000 rushing yard season. He would actually come close to appearing in the Super Bowl, which was in 1985 with the LA Rams. But they were going to play the Chicago Bears in the 1985 NFC Championship. And not only that, the Bears, they shut him down. I mean, Eric Dickerson was a big dude. He was 6'3", playing running back. And they shut him down. They shut him down. I mean, that 85 Bears defense was, phenomenal. I don't think he couldn't do nothing with the 85 Bears. And not only that, he would eventually get traded in the season to the Indianapolis Colts, which is one of the most craziest trades in the NFL to this day. Season trades. He definitely would not play in the Super Bowl. He played with the Colts, Falcons. Then he went back to the LA Rams. I believe he played with the Chiefs too. Correct me if I'm wrong. Leave a comment. But he never played in the Super Bowl, man. I mean, can you imagine if Eric Dickerson played in the Super Bowl? If he would have played in the Super Bowl, he definitely would have won MVP. I definitely could see that. Yeah, he definitely would have won MVP. LaDainian Tomlinson too. If he would have played, yeah, they definitely would have won MVP. But didn't appear. But Eric Dickerson is a Hall of Famer, so I give him that. He definitely is a Hall of Famer. Yeah. Another great NFL player that never played in the Super Bowl, Tony Gonzalez. Tony Gonzalez was a phenomenal tight end. That man was awesome. He has over 100 career receiving touchdowns, as I should say, and over 1,000 receptions. He did play with the Kansas City Chiefs, but he didn't play in the Super Bowl. He's known as a Kansas City Chiefs tight end. I mean, the man was phenomenal. But he will also have a second career team, which was the Atlanta Falcons. And believe it or not, he actually did come close to playing in the Super Bowl, which was the 2012 season. Well, that team will go on and play in the NFC Championship against the San Francisco 49ers, which they lost. Oh, man. Can you imagine if the Falcons would have never lost to the 49ers in that NFC Championship? He definitely would have played in the Super Bowl, and he definitely would have had a heck of a game if he would have played in the Super Bowl. Tony Gonzalez. It's a shame he never won a Super Bowl. Oh, man. It is a shame he never won a Super Bowl, but he is a Hall of Famer. I give him that. He is a Hall of Famer, and he's also a commentator. So, yeah, I give him that. But, man, Tony Gonzalez. Like I said, if he would have played in the Super Bowl, oh, yeah, he definitely would have had a big game. Definitely. Another great NFL player that did not play in a Super Bowl is Dan Fouts, quarterback. This man was a phenomenal quarterback for the San Diego Chargers. He played in the 70s and the 80s. But he did come close twice, playing in the 1980 and the 1981 AFC Championship, which they both lost, both of them, to teams that played in the Super Bowl, of course. I mean, he was a quarterback that had, 4 or 5 seasons of 4,000 passing yards in a row. And not only that, he had a great tight end within Kellen Winslow, Sr. Oh man, Dan Fouts. Only thing about Dan Fouts is he had a great offense, but his team didn't really have great defense. So that's another reason why he didn't play in the Super Bowl. I mean, can you imagine if he would have played in the Super Bowl, him and Kellen Winslow Sr.? Oh man, that definitely would have been a great team. But unfortunately, he didn't play in the Super Bowl. But he is a Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer, and he is a great commentator for the NFL. CBS, yes, he is. So shout out to Dan Fouts, man. Shout out to Dan Fouts. Another great player that did not play in the Super Bowl. Barry Sanders. Oh, Barry Sanders. Oh, my goodness. Can you imagine if he would have played in the Super Bowl? Oh, boy. Barry Sanders, one of the greatest running backs of all times. He was one of the top draft classes of 1989. And not only that, he was one of the great running backs to have over 2,000 rushing yards in a season. He did come close to playing in the Super Bowl. I mean, he would play in the 1991 NFC Championship against the Washington Redskins, which they got blown out 45-10. So, yeah, that wasn't even not even a chance. But he would have never appeared in another NFC Championship, and not only that, he retired early out of nowhere. I mean, he had over 100 rushing touchdowns, and he retired out of nowhere. Everybody was shocked when he retired in 1998. I believe he retired before the season started. Everybody was like, Barry Sanders is retiring? Yeah. It's a daggone shame. Barry Sanders never played in the Super Bowl. Can you imagine if he did? He probably would have won MVP. But I also believe if he would have played on another team, he definitely would have won a Super Bowl. But unfortunately, he spent all his career with the Detroit Lions. So, yeah. But he is a Hall of Famer. I give him that. He is a Hall of Famer. Another great player that did not appear in the Super Bowl, Gary Anderson, who was the kicker of the 1998 Minnesota Vikings, who missed that kick in the NFC Championship to make the game to go up to, so they would have had the lead by 10 points. Honestly, like I said, if Denny Green would have played within a couple seconds that they had with the 2 timeouts, and you still had Randy Moss and Chris Carter and Randall Cunningham, you could have ran the ball up or throw the ball up the field, and Gary Anderson probably would have at least made up for that missed kick that he missed. Not only that, he missed in the dome. So how is that even possible? I mean, anything's possible, but you missed in the dome. That's crazy. But yeah, I believe he would have made up for that kick that he missed, but unfortunately they lost that NFC Championship. Boy, oh boy. Poor Vikings fans. Yeah. Another great player that did not appear in a Super Bowl is, Steve Largent. Now, Steve Largent was a phenomenal wide receiver. He actually got started with the Houston Oilers, but they cut him. And then he was signed with the Seattle Seahawks. Steve Largent. He was the first receiver to receive 100 receiving touchdowns. 100. Yeah. He broke the long time record. But yeah, he's the first receiver to receive 100 reception touchdowns. He would actually come close to playing in the Super Bowl in the 1983 AFC Championship when they lost to the LA Raiders. Yeah, the Seahawks used to play in the AFC. Then later on, they came into the NFC. Yeah. But Steve Largent definitely was a phenomenal wide receiver. I mean, to me, he was underrated. And not only that, he, like I said, he came close, but that was the last time that the Seahawks went to the AFC Championship before coming to the NFC. But one thing for sure, he definitely is a Hall of Famer. So shout out to Steve Largent, who is a Hall of Fame wide receiver in the NFL. Yeah. Another great NFL player that did not appear in the Super Bowl is Sonny Jurgensen. Now, Sonny Jurgensen, he actually won an NFL championship with the Philadelphia Eagles in 1960. Well, later on, he would get traded to the Washington Redskins, which I still don't understand that, but yeah, that's how Philadelphia is. But he was part of the 1972 Washington Redskins that went to Super Bowl VII. Well, he didn't play in the Super Bowl because he was sideline injured. So they had to go with their backup quarterback. Can you imagine if Sonny Jurgensen would have never got hurt, if he would have played in that Super Bowl? Then again, the Dolphins probably wouldn't have no perfect season. But yeah, Sonny Jurgensen never appeared in the Super Bowl. Phenomenal quarterback. He did make it to the Hall of Fame, though, but he won an NFL championship, but he didn't play in the Super Bowl. So, yeah. Like I said, he is in the Hall of Fame, so shout out to Sonny Jurgensen. Well, he just passed away, so rest in peace, Sonny Jurgensen. Yeah. Another great NFL player that did not appear in the Super Bowl is Joe Thomas. Joe Thomas played left tackle for the Cleveland Browns. And not only that, he was part of that 2007 draft class. I mean, Joe Thomas definitely wasn't going to play in the Super Bowl. I mean, look at the team he played for. He played with the Cleveland Browns. Poor Browns fans. Poor Browns fans. I know some of y'all Browns fans may not like me, but I really don't care because my team, yeah. Well, y'all know what I'm saying. But yeah, Joe Thomas was a phenomenal left tackle. And, man, I mean, he definitely protected his quarterback's blind side. I mean, can you imagine if he would have went to another team? He probably definitely would have won a Super Bowl or at least played in it. But, yeah, he played with the Cleveland Browns. So, Browns, oh, boy. But he is a Hall of Famer. I believe he is. Correct me if I'm wrong. Leave a comment. But, yeah, he is in the Hall of Fame. What I'm talking about. Yeah, he's phenomenal. Joe Thomas was phenomenal left tackle. But like I said, he played with the Cleveland Browns. So, yeah, and not only that, he was also a Pro Bowler too. So, yeah. Another great NFL player that did not play in the Super Bowl is Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson definitely was a phenomenal running back. I mean, one year he tore his ACL, then the next year he was about 9 yards short from breaking Eric Dickerson's single-season rushing record. He was 9 yards short. He also won MVP that year in 2012. But he was part of that 2009 Minnesota Vikings, which he played with Brett Favre. They were going and play in the 2009 NFC Championship against the eventual Super Bowl champion New Orleans Saints. Now, we already know what happened in that NFC Championship. Brett Favre should have kept running, but he threw the ball across his body, and it was an interception. Then the game was going to overtime, but the Saints won. But Adrian Peterson was phenomenal. I mean, he was hard to bring down. He will knock you down. And not only that, like I said, he had 9 yards to beat Eric Dickerson's single-season record. And he would play with multiple teams, but those multiple teams that he played for didn't play in the Super Bowl. I mean, can you imagine if he would have played with other teams before he played with those other teams like the Cardinals, the Saints, the Seahawks, the Titans? He definitely would have played in the Super Bowl, and he probably would have won MVP. But, you know, he spent most of his career with the Vikings. Boy, Vikings. What is wrong with the Vikings? Please tell me what is wrong with the Vikings. Yeah. He's not in the Hall of Fame yet. He will get there because he has over 100 rushing touchdowns. But, yeah, he's going to be a Hall of Famer one day. Another great NFL player that did not play in the Super Bowl is J.J. Watt. Now, J.J. Watt was a phenomenal defensive end for the Houston Texans. And not only that, he was part of that 2011 draft class, which was phenomenal. He was a tremendous defensive end. I mean, he has over 100 sacks, career sacks. But he did play for the Houston Texans, which is the youngest team in the NFL. He didn't even make it to at least the AFC Championship. No, he didn't. I mean, he made it to the wild card in the divisional rounds, but the Houston Texans didn't even at least make it to the AFC Championship. So, yeah, J.J. Watt was a phenomenal, and still is a phenomenal, well, he's not in the NFL no more, but he's a phenomenal defensive end. And not only that, he's not in the Hall of Fame yet, but he will be in the Hall of Fame, and I can't wait to see him in the Hall of Fame. Is he in the Hall of Fame? I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he's in the Hall of Fame. But he will be there, though, one day. J.J. Watt, you're good, man. Another great NFL player that did not play in the Super Bowl is, I already mentioned his name earlier, that is Phillip Rivers, quarterback of the San Diego Chargers. I mean, he had over 420 career touchdown passes. He came close in the 2007 AFC Championship, which they lost to the New England Patriots. I mean, Phillip Rivers was a phenomenal quarterback in the NFL. I mean, he was part of that 2004 draft class, and not only that, he actually got drafted by the Giants, and Eli Manning got drafted by the Chargers. Well, they made a trade, so he would go to the Eli would go to the Giants, and Phillip would go to the Chargers. I mean, can you imagine if that trade would have never happened? Maybe Phillip Rivers probably would have won those Super Bowls with the Giants, but who knows? Who knows? There's a reason why things happen. But anyway, Phillip Rivers was a phenomenal quarterback. And for him, didn't win the Super Bowl. He would definitely play with the Indianapolis Colts and then come back in the 2025 season when he was retired for at least 4 or 5 years. He said after this, I'm done. He didn't play that bad, though. He actually played all right. But, yeah, Phillip Rivers definitely is a phenomenal football player, quarterback that never appeared in the Super Bowl. He will be a Hall of Famer one day. Oh, for sure. He's definitely going to be in Hall of Fame. I can't wait to see that, though. But, yeah, Phillip, oh, man. You had LaDainian Tomlinson and Antonio Gates. Oh, man. Yeah. And lastly, on the list, a great NFL player that did not appear in the Super Bowl is O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson was a phenomenal running back in the NFL. And not only that he was a phenomenal running back in the NFL, he was the first running back to have over 2,000 rushing yards in a season. I mean, he did it in, 1973? But in that time, it was 14 games. Well, like I said, he was the first running back to have over 2,000 rushing yards. And he would eventually play with the Buffalo Bills. Well, during that time, they didn't even make it to the Super Bowl, or at least the AFC Championship. And then later on, he would play with the San Francisco 49ers, who definitely didn't make it to the NFC Championship by the time he was playing. I mean, the man was phenomenal. He had over 100 rushing touchdowns, and he was hard to bring down. He was good. And for him to play in that type of weather in Buffalo with the snow and the cold, excuse me, that shows you how great he was. And like I said, he was the first running back to have over 2,000 rushing yards in a season. He was the first. But unfortunately, he didn't get a chance to play in the Super Bowl. Can you imagine if he would have played in the Super Bowl? He definitely would have won MVP. And I believe he is a Hall of Famer. Yes, he is. He definitely is a Hall of Famer. R.I.P. to O.J. Simpson. But, yeah, didn't play in the Super Bowl. Man. So, ladies and gentlemen, those are your great NFL players that never appeared in the Super Bowl. Why? Maybe because it was the team they was on. Maybe because of the play calling. Maybe because it was the defensive play calling. But, yeah, there's a lot of great NFL players that did not appear in the Super Bowl. But majority of them are Hall of Famers. Yeah, I give them that. There's a lot of players that didn't win a Super Bowl, but they're in the Hall of Fame. Some players that played in Super Bowls multiple times and lost all of them, but they're still in the Hall of Fame. Like I said, I give them that. At least they made it to the Hall of Fame. Sometimes you don't have to win a Super Bowl to be in the Hall of Fame. There are a lot of players in the NFL that did not win the Super Bowl, but they made it to the Hall of Fame. And then you have some that won NFL and AFL championships, pre-Super Bowl era, but they still made it to the Hall of Fame. I give them that. I give them that. So, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, those are your players that did not appear in the Super Bowl. But like I said, they're Hall of Famers. So, like I said, I give them that. And not only that, this is the end of this episode of the Young Brother of Soul podcast show. Now, before we end this video, make sure y'all subscribe, hit that thumbs up, leave a comment, hit that notification button, and make sure you tell all your family and friends to tune in for the Young Brother of Soul podcast show. And like I said, I did not forget about the ones that wants to be interviewed on the Young Brother of Soul podcast show. It will happen. I don't know when, but it will happen. You just got to find a time. Just bear with me, y'all. Just bear with me. Thank you. And everybody have a good night. Stay safe. Be careful. And make sure y'all stay warm. Even though the weather warmed up a little bit, though. But y'all get what I'm saying. And thank you again. And make sure y'all tune in for some more, or the next episode of the Young Brother of Soul podcast. Now, thank you for the support too, y'all. Nah, let me stop playing. But make sure y'all tune in for some more episodes of the Young Brother of Soul podcast show. Thank you.